Hi, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Kyleen Lute with Acceldata, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with John Tucker, the Director of Enterprise Data Governance at McDonald's. Hey, John.
Hey, Amy, happy to be here.
Thanks for coming. And I assume that you sort of work hand in hand with a lot of the business sort of consumers of the data in your role.
Yeah, so it's funny when you think of governance, it can sit anywhere. It can sit between the business or in IT. And I've done both actually. I've been in IT. When I first started my journey in governance, my department was based in IT, and it was well positioned to align with the various different business functions we were in financial services. Now, fast forward to where I am today, I sit on the business side, but I work very closely with my IT counterparts, our data product teams, the data producers, but also working with the consumer side. So, our insights teams, our data science teams, and then also our Gen AI teams. We work very closely together. So, I kind of feel like I'm in not necessarily a middleman, but it's a hybrid role. So, you have to have a little bit of a technical knowledge, but also really be educated on what is the business trying to achieve with the data in order to influence how that data needs to be positioned from a technical lens as well. So I think that's really what's been helpful. And I do think being on the business side, you get that flavor of the understanding where we're trying to go as a company. When you're on the IT side, you're trying to figure out how do I keep the lights on? How do I provide what's needed versus what is the end outcome and result that you're really trying to achieve? And then how do you back into that? What data do you need in order to get to that hypothesis or conclusion?
Yeah. In our conversations with, global 2000 enterprises, we're seeing this new title of data product managers become more popular. And I think it is trying to get at the sort of product management ethos of serving the business and this intersection of sort of, both the technical product and the business need.
Right. And I think even at McDonald's, we're doing the same thing. So we have a group of business data product owners, and then you do have our technical data product owners. And now they're starting to work well together to not only establish what's the purpose of the product, how it should be used and leveraged, but also understand that product may be created for one use case, but how can you then get the value out of that product across multiple use cases around the organization? So it's really good to see that, you have a business team and technology team now working together to establish what that scope of work is, but also how can you get more value out of that, and then them bringing teams like mine along to ensure that, hey, we have the right controls, policies, and standards in place as you kind of roll that out.
Yeah. It's almost like a mini go-to-market function within the org. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
In the governance space, the emphasis can be on compliance and efficiency in some orgs. Do you think there's an opportunity with AI and other technical advancements for the data teams to actually drive revenue capture and improve customer experiences?
I do. I think that, with the, recent years, the last 2 years, I would say AI has just become a major topic, especially
Yeah.
generative AI and its advances of how you can create operational efficiencies on daily tasks, but also how do you use, data to help drive some of those decisions using, machine learning models and AI along with that. So I think as we think of it from a McDonald's perspective, how do we improve the customer journey? How do we improve our crew members' lives in the restaurants, but also on the back office as you think of corporate teams, how do we improve their experiences as well? So there's many different ways we're looking at that from, the personalization of as you think of our drive-throughs, we've done POCs around, automated drive-through and order taking to ensure the order accuracy is a lot better. We've done things in the restaurant where we're now introducing, various different chatbots to try to help the management side of things. So those persistent tasks that you think of, time off requests, or, how do I make this item, being able to have that quick visual of here's the how the item is made. And I guess I would say the menu card is very helpful versus one having to look through a book or look for material. So those are things that we're thinking of, smaller use cases from a customer and restaurant perspective, but on the corporate side is, really trying to drive on things like text-to-SQL, common things where you can accelerate use cases within analytical teams, but also in business teams and how they make those decisions faster. But also, how do you drive standards through AI to ensure that folks are getting the right information and they can trust it as well? So, those are things that in use cases that we're kind of working through. Haven't really materialized a lot of those yet, but I can definitely say we have a lot in the hopper that we're going through and kind of proving out whether or not the value is actually there.
Yeah, and of course, needless to say, underlying all of that, AI has to be trusted and reliable data, right? So that's
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when you
that
think of that,
continues.
yeah, and when you think of that, we have a robust framework. We have where what we've done is establish this AI governance working group, and it's a combination. I'm probably going to forget a few teams, but it's a combination, as you can think of, our legal, our data privacy team. We have cybersecurity there. We have data architecture, and then you have a few key business functions that are focused around the customer, the crew journey, and then on the end business side of how do we use and leverage that AI model? What is its intended purpose? What value will it bring? Whether it's operational efficiency or whether we think it's going to drive some sort of business value and enabling marketing use cases and things like that. So we have that group that's put together. Governance actually has a seat at the table to say, here's what the data is actually using, whether or not we can trust that data, what's the source of that data, what's the inner workings of that model, what is it actually doing, so we can then explain that to, if a regulator does come knock on our door, we're easily able to say, here's what this model does, here's what it does not do, here's how that data is used and leveraged in the organization, here's who uses and leverages that, here's how often it's tested, and here's what that quality of that data looks like. So definitely have a robust framework we've built in the last year and a half, and really trying to ensure that, one, our corporate teams and our staff, they can trust the data, but also, two, if we were ever asked a question on why we perform this activity or why we use this model, we can easily articulate and show, here's the work that we're doing underneath that to ensure that we have proper controls and trust under that data.
Yeah, and that it's been a thoughtful process sort of from the beginning. That makes a ton of sense. And I mean, it's exciting to think about someone with such a large footprint as McDonald's implementing some of these things that will touch so many, so many consumers. And it really will start to bring to life all of this AI that we've sort of been hearing about in a more abstract capacity.
No, I definitely agree. And I think that, as multiple companies go along this journey,
Yeah.
we're all starting to see, and they talk about these, you see Gardner throws out some reports, or you see Forrester, and they'll say, this is where corporate teams are now starting to see AI is actually driving value, or in 5 years, they may realize that the hype was there, but it didn't really fully materialize. We're really starting to think through those use cases and see if we can make sure that there's value or there's risk avoidance that we can avoid by having that working group take a look at all those various use cases.
Yeah, I read something recently that said, sort of in the technology adoption curve that we've seen, with cloud or even blockchain or other things, that we're so far ahead with AI compared to where we have been in other transitions that have ended up being real, like cloud. And it's just really setting sort of a new record in terms of pace to actualization and being impactful in people's lives. So
I agree. And I would say you mentioned blockchain. I kind of chuckle a little bit because in banking, blockchain was huge. And I just being in this industry, I don't hear much about blockchain too much anymore. But what you
yeah,
do hear about is metaverse. And I think that that had a little bit of hype in the last couple of years, but haven't heard much about that either. So I agree. I definitely think in the AI space, we're hearing a lot more about it. It's persistent, but now it's more of, how do you put the proper controls around it?
right. Yeah, super important, particularly when consumers are involved and there's privacy. Okay, well, I've so enjoyed our conversation today, John. Thank you for joining me. And for more interviews and insights, please visit cdomagazine.tech. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.